When people talk about Hollywood's golden age, they usually speak of glamour. The sparkling gowns, the red carpets, the eternal smiles that defined an era. But behind those perfect photographs were secrets that riot of betrayal, cruelty, and fear. And one man known for his integrity and his piercing blue eyes decided to tell the truth before his time ran out. His name was Burt Lancaster, a man who lived through the very system he would later expose. In his final years, he began writing what he called the most evil of them all, a list that would forever change how we see the legends of old Hollywood. The man who knew too much. Burt Lancaster wasn't just another movie star. Born November 2nd, 1913 in Manhattan, he came from a working-class Irish-American family that taught him toughness and discipline. He grew up in East Harlem, a place that shaped his grit and independence. Before he ever set foot on a film set, Lancaster was a circus acrobat performing stunts with his lifelong friend Nick Sevat in the K-Brothers Circus. That experience, full of danger and control, became a metaphor for the life he would later lead, balancing on the high wire of Hollywood's golden illusion. After World War II, Lancaster served in the U.S. Army Special Services Unit, entertaining troops across Europe. When returned home, fate struck. A chance audition led him to the 1946 noir classic, The Killers, which made him an overnight sensation. Within a decade, he was one of the most powerful men in their industry, starring in films like From Here to Eternity, Elmer Gantry, Birdman of Alcatraz, and Judgment at Nuremberg. But Lancaster wasn't just an actor. He was a producer, a thinker, a rebel. He co-founded Hectil Lancaster Productions, one of the first independent studios in Hollywood, determined to make films that told the truth instead of selling lies off-screen. He was a vocal activist, marching with Martin Luther King Jr., opposing the Vietnam War, and publicly condemning McCarthy-era witch hunts. To most, he represented the moral center of old Hollywood. Yet, as the decades passed, Lancaster grew increasingly bitter. He had seen too much. The backroom deals, the abuse, the corruption hidden beneath the glitz. By the 1970s, as the golden age faded into nostalgia, Lancaster began documenting everything he'd witnessed. His goal wasn't revenge. It was confession. Heckled at the most evil of them all. Approbate manuscript that listed 14 names, actors, and actresses he believed had destroyed others for power. To him, these were not rumors. They were scars left on his generation, the masks of Hollywood. Lancaster's journal began with a warning. Not all smiles are kind. He wanted readers to understand that the Golden Age was built as much on cruelty as it was on charisma. His first target was one of his own friends, Kirk Douglas, his co-star in Gunfight at the OK Corral and 7 Days in May. To the world, Douglas was the image of strength, the proud rebel who fought studio control and brought Spartacus to life. But to Lancaster, he was a ruthless titan, a man who thrived on domination. He accused Douglas of betraying co-stars to secure roles, blacklisting rivals, and manipulating producers. Through charm, Lancaster even claimed Douglas would steal a role from his own son if it meant another headline. Their professional partnership, once celebrated, had long since curdled into distrust. Then came Mickey Rooney, whom Lancaster called the Mask of Mischief. Rooney, America's sunscreen boy next door, was described as a cruel man behind closed doors, one who mocked extras and humiliated young actresses for sport. Lancaster recalled watching him bully background performers during filming, turning entire sets into places of fear. Rooney's 8 failed marriages, Lancaster wrote, were not bad luck, but a pattern of control and abandonment for a man so beloved by audiences. His private behavior, if true, revealed a much darker truth. But Lancaster didn't spare the women either. His most controversial entry was Natalie Wood, whom he labeled the siren with a secret. To him, she wasn't the fragile ingenue Hollywood adored, but a master manipulator of sympathy and influence. He claimed she used her emotions like weapons, crying on cue to get others fired or rewritten out of films. Her mysterious death in 1981 haunted Lancaster deeply. He once told a close friend, "The seed didn't take her, Hollywood did." In his mind, her fate symbolized the price of deceit and ambition in a world that rewarded both. Next was Elizabeth Taylor, the Diamond Queen of drama. Lancaster described Eros as a storm wrapped in silk, capable of turning entire productions into chaos. During the filming of Cleopatra in 1962, she reportedly halted work for hours over a trivial wardrobe dispute. To Lancaster, Taylor's marriages and scandals weren't tragedies. They were weapons. She didn't just steal scenes. He wrote she stole souls, the devil's behind the gentleman. After Elizabeth Taylor, Lancaster turned his focus to the men whose public images defined virtue and respectability, but whose private behavior he claimed revealed something far colder. The first name was Spencer Tracy, the actor critics worshipped for his depth, discipline, and quiet strength. But in Lancaster's manuscript, Tracy was called the tyrant behind the talent. He described him as an unpredictable storm, a man whose alcoholism turned him from into to menace. He could play saints on the screen, Lancaster wrote. But he was a devil in the dressing room. Tracy's rages, according to Lancaster, were not just personal battles, but acts of intimidation. Crew members were terrified of crossing him. Lancaster recalled an incident from 1961 during the filming of Judgment at Nuremberg when Tracy allegedly smashed a bottle in fury at a minor mistake by a makeup artist. While fans excused these eruptions as the suffering of a tortured genius, Lancaster saw only the trail of fear they left behind. He didn't just destroy sets, he said that he destroyed people. From there, the list turned to James Stewart. Perhaps the most shocking inclusion of all of Stewart was America's moral compass, their embodiment of decency in Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and It's a Wonderful Life. But Lancaster called him the dark heart of America's sweetheart. He wrote that Stewart smiled for the camera, but judged everyone behind it. In his account, Stewart's kind persona was a carefully constructed performance, a tool to maintain control and respect. Lancaster accused him of taking secret notes on co-stars' mistakes and delivering them to directors, quiet sabotage disguised as professionalism. Even more disturbing, he hinted that Stewart's patriotism had a shadow side, a subtle prejudice that kept certain actors off his sets. Then came Marilyn Monroe, the angel of addiction. To the world, she was the definition of vulnerability, the wounded goddess who made men want to protect her. But Lancaster saw something darker: manipulation. He claimed Monroe used her fragility as leverage, delaying productions, seducing powerful men, and playing helpless to keep control. During Some Like It Hot, he wrote, she disappeared from set for hours, leaving everyone waiting. She didn't cry for help, Lancaster noted. She made help come to her. To him, her tragic death was not a mystery, but an inevitable end to a life consumed by dependence and deception. The final act of a woman Hollywood, both created and destroyed, the legacy of cruelty. After the fragile chaos of Monroe, Lancaster's journal took a darker turn, one that peeled back the glamorous masks of Hollywood's most masculine icons. The next name was Errol Flynn, the man who had once defined adventure itself. To the public, Flynn was the dashing rogue of the adventures of Robin Hood and Captain Blood, a symbol of charisma and freedom. But in Lancaster's words, he was a devil-may-care desperado, a charming sociopath in pirate's clothing. Lancaster described the parties Flynn hosted as dens of indulgence, places where violence, exploitation, and fear blurred together. He wrote that Flynn lived as if no one else existed. His charm a weapon that lured people close only to leave them broken. Flynn's string of arrests, his whispered scandals, and his constant escapes from justice became, to Lancaster, proof that power in Hollywood could protect even the worst kind of behavior. He called him a man without consequence, someone who turned sin into spectacle and laughed while doing it. From Flynn, the story turned domestic and even more chilling. Lancaster wrote about Bing Crosby, calling him the cuner of cruelty. The gentle-voiced singer who's renated millions with White Christmas was, in Lancaster's view, a man of ice behind the microphone. He was a tyrant of the home. Lancaster detailed how Crosby's children lived under constant fear, his discipline crossing into cruelty. He could sing a lullaby to the world, Lancaster wrote, and strike terror in his own house. Decades later, Crosby's eldest son, Gary Crosby, would confirm those rumors in his memoir, describing years of emotional and physical abuse. For Lancaster, that validation was proof of Hollywood's hypocrisy, that the men who sang about love were often strangest to it. But the horror didn't stop with Bing. Lancaster added Gary himself to the list. Calling him the inheritor of darkness raised under the weight of fear, Gary grew into a man who repeated his father's sins. He didn't just carry the scars, Lancaster wrote. He carried their edge. His adult life was a storm of addiction, violence, and self-destruction. A living testament to what inherited cruelty could do. Lancaster saw Gary as a tragic symbol, proof that pain once planted never really dies. It grows roots and spreads from fathers to sons, from generation to generation. In his words, Hollywood didn't just make stars, it made monsters, too. And sometimes they were born at home, the cold hearts of Hollywood. After exposing the brutal lineage of the Crosbys, Lancaster shifted his focus toward a different kind of cruelty, the quiet, invisible kind. He began with Henry Fonda, a man long regarded as the moral face of American cinema. To audiences, Fonda represented integrity, the noble father figure of The Grapes of Wrath and the righteous juror in 12 Angry Men. But Lancaster's description was chilling. He treated life like a courtroom, cold, judgmental, and silent. Lancaster saw Fonda's stillness not as calm, but as control. On set, he was known for discipline and composure. But at home, that same composure could turn to emotional ice. His children, Jane and Peter, grew up in the shadow of a man who was distant, unreachable, and impossible to please. He passed judgment with a glance, Lancaster wrote, and those who loved him most froze under it. Jane